Welcome to Miniature Wargaming Labs. I'm Brian,
And I'm James.
and today we're going to be looking at a game by Games Workshop, little-known game company. What's the game, James?
So the game we'll be covering this week is Necromunda. And so this is one, I didn't play the first edition, but I bought into the second edition really hard back in 2017 when it came out. And the plan wasn't, since I played this so much, or I don't know about play, but I collect the miniatures in the books enough. I wasn't going to cover this, but they came out with solo play rules for it, or at least a solo play scenario. So I figured during the quarantine we'd give this game some coverage.
Yeah, definitely right now, those kind of games are hot.
Super hot this season.
this deadly season.
That's true.
Stay inside and play some games by yourself. So, what's the theme of this game?
So where most of the Games Workshop puts out are set in the battlefields of their realms. So let's just stick with Warhammer 40K. So what you're covering is like the frontline troops. So Space Marines versus the Xenos and the Chaos groups out there. So this is a game set on warfare on the civilian side. So this is gang warfare. And it's called Necromunda because it's set on the world of Necromunda. You know, probably more well known to mainstream 40K fans for where the Imperial Fists keep their garrison monastery. So this is, you know, every hive world has a bad part of it. And it's not only in the sumps, in the sewers
Isn't
of
that
it.
just
So
the hive world?
what?
Isn't that just the hive world
Yeah,
itself?
that's well. Yeah, the closer you are to the top, so if you're an up hiver, you're fine. If you're a down hiver, you know, you make your living. But in the under hive, where this is set, is where the gangs rule. And so
Right.
the theme of this is you follow around the different gangs as they go about their fighting.
Nice. So, being a GW game, that means you kind of have to have a book or two, definitely some models, definitely some terrain. So, what is everything that you need for this game?
All right. Since you brought up the books, let's just say if you want the current books, let's go right
Like
there.
I said, one or two.
Yeah, one or two. We can talk about that. You don't have to have them all, especially if you're playing in a group. You probably just need a couple of them. Let's say you bought into like the box games. Now, if you buy one of the box sets, you'll get everything, the minimum you need, set them up. So we've done an unboxing on the Dark Uprising box, and this is the original Necromunda Underhive box. You'll get like a basic softback rule book. So you start with the rule books. You need enough to run your gang at least and understand the rules. They'll also come with their own special dice. So they don't use like a 1 or 2. They have dice with like little pictures on it. And you can buy, as usual, gang-specific dice. Like every faction has its own dice. It's an extra way to get $15 out of you for 4 dice.
Hey, you gotta have your special dice.
They're nice. The dice is the one thing I haven't pushed into. But they also have, you have your minis. And the thing you should understand about when you do Necromunda minis is that if you thought Mechanicus was intricate and tiny to assemble, wait till you get a Necromunda box and start trying to put together some of those gangs of where, your favorite, where the face is separate from the head.
Oh, so much fun.
Find it and glue it on. So you'll push yourself in the assembly. Like the assembly does not tolerate error, and but you can get pretty intricate with the paint jobs because of that level of detail. But this is one of the few games that also still requires templates. So they have the small and large blast template, the flamer templates, and if you get the box set, or if you're an old 40K player, you have those when they were still in the game. And of course, you need a playing surface, and there's a couple different ways to set up the gaming area, which we can talk about in some of the unique features of the game.
So with all that, who should play this game? Like, who's this game like targeted at?
So with this game, it's a skirmish game. So let's compare it to Kill Team. So
Okay.
you're controlling, a group of guys from 5 to 10 models typically, and you're playing a skirmish game, so you control them individually. But where Kill Team looks at it as like a professional military force, and while you can customize your Kill Team, it doesn't approach the customization of Necromunda. I mean, Necromunda, you can customize your gangs, the campaigns, the scenarios. A lot more happens between scenarios than in Kill Team. So you're looking at a way more narrative form of gaming than you pretty much find even in Warcry. So this is more on the level of what Mordheim used to offer in like a narrative arc to your gaming.
Okay, so it's more for the people that are looking for a story in their game with their GW miniatures, which, I mean, this has its own separate miniature line, but it's still you get a lot more story out of it. That's awesome. So speaking of that, how did the game mechanics work?
So this is a typical D6 system. So you have every model has a certain level of strength, toughness. So if you're familiar with the stat line with the other Games Workshop games, come on, all these miniature games are the same. How well can you shoot?
Much.
How well can you punch? How well can you stab? Now, what's different about Necromunda is they also have some extra attributes like cool and leadership and intelligence, which is to deal with more of like when you find yourself in a scenario. Because what you have to understand about the mechanics of this game, and once again, we'll tie it to Kill Team. Remember, in Kill Team, your models have like 360, and they always shoot where you tell them to. Mm-hmm. In Necromunda, sometimes there's a penalty for not shooting at the closest guy to you because you're not a professional super soldier, not even compared to like the guardsmen. Like, you're not actually been through a boot camp and trained on how to use a weapon. You have on-the-job training. So it's like, if you miss a guy and there's someone in between you and the target you were shooting at, even if a friendly model, you might actually shoot him in the back of the head in the game. So there's a lot more to chance in this, and you get a lot more of the chaos of like, if you ever watch the movie Warriors, fighting the gang wars in LA.
Yep.
This has a lot more feel of that, of where the mechanics drive random bad stuff to happen, and the mechanics favor more lopsided, which Kill Team Arena is probably the most sanitized and purified form of trying to get balance in skirmish games. Necromunda doesn't bother itself with that.
Okay. So you kind of touched on it a little bit. What features makes this game unique?
So you have that randomness and the chaos in the game. Like I said, let's forget about like the hand grenade that goes in the wrong direction. You can have, bullets and laser blasts go in the wrong direction and do something you're not expecting. And you have poisons and toxic gases. What's also interesting about it is like when you show up to Kill Team, you bring all your guys. There's certain scenarios in Necromunda where I didn't bring up the cards, but you have like little cards for your characters. Mm-hmm. All the skirmish games have that. But there are certain scenarios where you take those cards and you shuffle them, and you will pull out 6 and say, well, there's my gang. Or you can actually roll die to determine how many of your gang actually show up to the fight, because not all of them might, have sobered up in time to make it to the Rumble. But there's just that extra edge, and that's what I enjoy about it. No, I don't play Kill Team tournaments because of Arena. The sanitized are like, well, let's balance points and let's balance terrain. I prefer it of where, if I show up at a table and it doesn't favor me, well, that's that's the breaks of naval gunfire right there. That's just the way the battle is going to fold out. Because in Necromunda, you do have this balancing between, quantity versus quality. Because like I said, if you have to randomly shuffle up your cards, and even like your extra tactic cards, which are like stratagems or command points, you might have to shuffle those up and you don't get to see which ones you get. So there's just this, everything's in flux and a chance. And that's the part I really enjoy about it.
Nice. So you showed us the couple books that you need for this game. How are they laid out and organized?
Okay, so I think this is one of those discussions. When you show up and you look at the price tags of some of these books, do you really want to buy them all? Okay. So like I said, you have your 2 beginner, and if you think the rules are the same in both these books, even though they're both canon, you'd be wrong. And that just adds to the flavor of it. But, I like to divide it into like, all right, so those come in the box sets. And then you have the standard hardback rule book, which is the rules for Necromunda. And then you have the gangs. This is how to assemble the base gangs. And after that point, you should see kind of like Vigils Ablaze or Psychic Awakening. There's going to be other campaign books in there, and these will introduce new monsters, new characters that you can hire into your gang.
Nice.
New scenarios, different types of ways to structure campaigns. And now, to get extra money out of you, where before one book covered all the gangs, now one book will cover one gang in depth.
Gotta get your codex.
Yeah. So this is kind of like, if you want to get your, you bought the Space Marine chapter codex, but you figured you had too much money left over. Now you can get like your Salamanders chapter. So like you can get, they're starting to do these gang specific. And I really wondered how I felt about that. But when you actually get it, and just the level of effort that they put into this book, and of where before you could have like a leader, a champion, and a ganger, and like a young ganger, we call it Juve, you can really just blow your gang up with like different types of hanger-ons, bounty hunters, ogrins can hop on to the Goliath gang. I'm actually really enjoying these. So like the deeper they get into the series, the more I'm actually enjoying the books.
Nice. So it kind of makes it its own. It's more fluffy in the list making.
Yeah, so I bought
the bigger books.
Well, I bought into Necromunda on accident because I was a real big fan of Shadow War Armageddon. Mm-hmm. But I think that was more popular than they expected it would be. And so they killed it quickly. And then the next skirmish game they launched was Necromunda. So I thought, well, this is going to be the skirmish game for 40K. I like skirmish. I'll buy into it. Was I really that big into Underhive at the time? Not really. And then Kill Team came out, so I always thought, well, gosh, I made a mistake. I should have held off and just waited for Kill Team to come out. But Kill Team was just way more sanitized than Armageddon was. And
yes.
Way more sanitized than Necromunda 2017 is. And so once I got deeper into the books and you could really just customize these into a way that's really incapable for a human to grasp all at one time, like all the options that you have spread out between all the books.
Nice. So how is gameplay organized?
So the idea is you have a scenario, and like in all these books, they're always adding to the scenarios, and you go to White Dwarf and get some new scenarios. Mm-hmm. But I think what I should bring up is when you play these scenarios, you can actually either play them in what they call the Underhive way, which is when you buy the original box set, you got these 12-inch by 12-inch tiles, and you build a 4x4 board. Nice. And then they said, well, another way you could play is the Sector Mechanicus terrain had just come out, and, sales had to go up on that. So they said, well, you can also play in Sector Mechanicus terrain, and we'll give you 3D rules. Like, okay. And with now the Dark Uprising box, they've added like a little 2x2 little unfolding mat that you can put out there, and it kind of blends the two. So now you have staircases, which is really convenient. If you've ever played Kill Team, on any type of terrain that didn't have stairs.
Oh yeah, no, you're not getting to the high point.
Especially if you're a Plague Marine character, you're not getting to the second floor.
No, not at all.
So then you can play all the different scenarios on there. And they also have bad zones. So you can have like really irradiated, crappy areas with like sludge pools around. And they have ones they don't make terrain for, of like, you know, playing in waste sumps, which are basically giant seas of sewage that you've got to like navigate around. So a lot of creativity.
Which is awesome. Which, I mean, I think that's something that me and you both look for in a game. So speaking of creativity, how is a gang organized?
So the thing I have to tell you right now is if you're just getting into this, go to Yak Tribe, which is a website, and build your gang there, because they have all the programming in there to build the Necromunda 2017, the second edition that we're talking about. And then it'll print off the gang list you need, with all the exotic creatures and hanger-ons, and it'll print out the little cards you need. That's really important, especially if you're trying to remember all the different options that are available to you in all these books. But basically, you start off, you pick a leader, and then you're allowed, you can pick champions, and then you have the next down from there is gangers and then juves. But the way they balance it is you just can't fill your gang with champions or regular gangers.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a certain number of juvies, like new guys. You're only allowed a certain number. So they try to balance it so that, you know, you don't just take an elite squad. You actually do have to go a quantity route. So I think, what is it, like normally it's about 50% gangers and Jews. And you know, over time, as you're going through the gang, you can get access to rare weapons. So like all the weapons have rarity stats on them. You can also get Xenos weapons.
Nice.
You can customize your model to have, like, if he lost his right arm, you know, you might go into the Cadian sprue and get that little cybernetic arm, attach that onto him. So
this is awesome.
It can be master crafted or junk. They have different scales and quality. You can also decide if your gang switches to chaos. It becomes an outlaw. Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to point out is that if you play Gene Stealer cults, that is probably the most flexible army I've seen out there, because you can take those models, play 40K, then you can play Kill Team, and then you have a Necromunda gang.
Because with the Necromunda, you could have the Gene Stealer cults, like the Alkalites and them, right?
Yes. So you can play. Well, I mean, if you think about the whole idea of the Gene Stealer cults, is that they're the civilians that lead an uprising.
Yeah.
Well, in Necromunda, you're just fighting them before they achieve that planetary uprising. So you can take them as a gang, which I think from a cost perspective, like when I'm at the store and people ask about Necromunda, it's like, you know, take Gene Stealer cults. Because even if you hate Necromunda, it's like, well, you can go play the other GW games.
Now, can you do Chaos Cultists? Because that would be another one. Yep. So that's another one that play in all three games.
Yeah. So I took the Chaos Cultists from the Escalation, Blackstone Fortress Escalation box.
Those ones are very nice.
Yeah, and because they didn't have military uniforms on them, I just slapped the Necromunda bases on the bottom of them, and that's going to be my Chaos Cult.
Those bases are absolutely beautiful, so that definitely works.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that there's a single-player mode, which means that there's probably a campaign. You also said that it's more a campaign game. So how does the campaign system work, and how does the single-player campaign mode fit in with that?
Yeah. So like each one of the base books discuss campaigns, and these are pretty simple. They give you like 10 scenarios, and they give you easy ways to link them together. Or they also offer different campaigns. So the classic one is the Dominion campaign, and that's where you actually, and when you do this, I prefer like draw a map of like a dome in the Underhive, and then all the people participating in the campaign sees little sections of those maps because they're trying to secure the illegal businesses that go with that territory. So you can fight against each other over that territory. Then you also have what's known as a Law and Misrule campaign that came out recently with like Cal Jericho model. And that one you do, because most crime on Necromunda is authorized, but that campaign goes into unauthorized crime. So that's where you get, that's where, you know, you're just such an evil gang that you become outlaws, so you can't be tolerated anymore. But that allows you access to forbidden weapons. So you get to have a little bit more fun. I think it's just a way for them to sell forge rolled bits, because if you're an outlaw gang, you have to look even more beat up. So you have to buy the special forge rolled heads there. Now, what was interesting about the solo campaign, because they have skirmish rules. So like get a 1,300 point gang, just drop in, play one game, move on. With the solo one, what it is you're actually taking an ambot, so giant robotic beast, probably one of my favorite kits of the Necromunda line, and you're basically playing hide and seek with him. And the way they designed this is like, if the pandemic, if COVID hit you in the middle of your campaign, well, the games master or arbitrator has a way for you to like play something. So like you hunt down the ambot and you have like a little tiny, you're supposed to play a really cluttered square. It's supposed to be his lair. And the idea is one gang member goes out there and conducts a search action while another gang member stands behind him with a gun. And you just have to hope that the ambot pops up. You're able to shoot him before he grabs the guy who's looking for him and runs away with it. So, and then what's nice about the solo rules is one of the campaign books actually has a way of making one-off super powerful monsters. And so if you get tired of playing the ambot, you could throw in a demon, or you can throw in, you know, when the Zoat comes out, I'll probably throw the Zoat model in there.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
Zoat. Or an Amble, because I have the Amble from Blackstone Fortress. So most solo games that have been coming out lately are basically zombies. They have zombies in Necromunda, but they don't have an AI system for solo play for them. What they did is just fight one giant super bad guy. So it's a simpler AI mechanic.
Okay. So you mentioned some like about the scenarios, that there's a couple scenarios. How are the scenarios included?
So when you buy like the base book, you have a standard list of scenarios, and as you buy more of the books, you get extra scenarios that you can throw in. And also if you buy some of the White Dwarfs, you can throw those scenarios in. Now, Necromunda doesn't have an annual yet. I'm sure if they figure that's a way that they could get me to buy more books, they'll make one in addition to the quarterly release of hardbacks. But eventually, a lot of those stuff in White Dwarf finds its way into the books. But the scenarios are actually a lot more linked than you'd find in something like Kill Team, because you can have a mission of where a rival gang can actually capture one of your guys.
Oh, wow.
One of your gang members. So they can come up, sucker punch them, and there's various ways that they can be snatched, which means the next game you're going to play is Prison Rescue. And then your gang has to infiltrate that territory and grab someone. So the scenarios are pretty interlinked, and you can buy more books or get the White Dwarfs to interlink them. Probably one of my favorite ones is there's actually Barroom Brawl scenario.
Oh,
so
nice.
The leader and the champions don't show up. It's just the gangers and the Jubes, and it's just them getting in a fight in a bar. So it's like this one-off, just a way to entertain yourself.
Sounds cool. So what is this game missing? What would make this a more better game?
So I think probably rules clarity or rules accuracy. Like I said, comment if you go on the Necromunda Worldwide Facebook, they'll say, how are these two books canon? and equivalent to each other rules wise.
Mm-hmm.
But rules that are in this one, the more recent one, aren't found in this one. And
Of course,
games, it's been a couple of years. You think an FAQ would cover that? Maybe a Facebook post, a tweet of some type? No, they're just going to leave it out there of like
they don't care about that.
Does a 1-up, if you roll a 1, do you always miss? You got to house rule that. There's various interpretations on that. So don't look for rules.
No.
But, that's something I think gives this game a lot of soul, because we've talked about, like, the tournament scene in 40K. If you go over to, like, the bolt action people or, like, any of the Warlord, any other games, Infinity, I'm not too familiar with Infinity. You're more into that. But there's always this complaint that 40K is the most brutal and full of jerks on the tournament scene. Because 40K rules are written for tournament people. But Necromunda, I found that games where the rules aren't written for the tournament scene make the best tournament games, because there's got to be this détente of where neither of us can be jerks to each other or cite the rule book, because no one's going to win if we resort to that level. So
yes. So no, I obviously don't play this game. I haven't played this game before. Why should I play this game? What would be a good reason for me to jump in on this game? I play, me, I play tons of games.
Well, so I think the reason you want to play this game is because just of the customization that you can't find in any other Games Workshop game, even Warcry, which I think Warcry is more equivalent in both look and play style to Necromunda than to Kill Team. But Necromunda is just way more customizable than even that. Mm-hmm. And they encourage you to get the Kroot rifle, cut it off the Kroot, and you can actually buy it for your gang. I mean, they'll have to be outlaws and buying Xenos tech, but they can do that. Or if you want your Goliath to carry around a storm bolter, you can cut it off your old tactical Space Marine you're not playing anymore and throw it on your ganger, and you're ready to go.
Nice. So I mean, this is definitely a game for somebody who likes making their own characters and building their own models, or having a little more creativity with their models. I mean, especially I've one that you brought up before that I think is really hits that is the Ambot, because I mean the Ambot it's not like big pieces, it's all little pieces. So I mean, how you put it together is I've seen people use it for orcs. I've seen people use it for Adamec. I've seen people use it for Gene Stealer cults. I mean, there's so many different ways you could build it and include it into things, and it's meant for Necromunda, which is awesome.
Yeah, it was one of the first. Yeah, I think that's one where you can start cutting into the joints and making it stand in postures. And then you're right, the head can come off, and you stick whatever head you want in there. But Necromunda is designed to make you love the guy you model and put together, which is why they came out with the rules to how to reanimate your character once it dies. In the latest awesome. White Dwarf. So if he dies and you're not happy about that, you can reanimate him and put him back in the
Bring
game.
Him back.
Now, he may not be cool after that, but you've got your buddy back.
So why shouldn't you play this game? Who is this game not for?
So if you are uptight about the precision of your rules, Kill Team Arena is there for you. That's not where you want to be. So this might not be the game for you if you want, instead of what's the classic where you got there well, actually, sir, if you'll refer to the Book of Judgment, page 36, you will state that the clause is followed by an and, not an or.
Yeah. I mean, the more storytelling a game is, the more the rules have to be a little, loose, which allows for more cinematic uh, gameplay. And I definitely get that feel from this game that this is supposed to be very thematic. You could play it out as a movie if you wanted to, which I think is really cool.
Well, so I'll be honest. I don't get to play this game that much because there's not a big Necromunda scene in Albuquerque. So I normally have to go to like Maryland or to Nova Open. Nova Open, I played the tournament, and I lost every game except the one. Now I had fun in all of them, but the one I lost on, basically the guy was going to beat me, but his guys climbed to an edge, and they just fell off. Like they all fell off. Like they all had industrial accidents. And so my guys went up there and like shot them after they fell, because not only when they fell, they didn't recover. So when you fall off a cliff, there's a chance you recover. He was also, my opponent was drinking heavily at Nova Open.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
but
not gonna lie, I would be there too.
It was a cinematic story for both of us.
Love it. So any closing remarks on this game?
So the one thing I'm hoping for this game, and we've noticed, especially with 9th edition coming, with the Space Marine Quad Tracker, and what was the orc game you got with the dune buggies? Speed Freaks. And then Gene Stiller Cults had the ATV and the motorbikes.
The Goliath. Yep.
Yeah. So the Necromunda, like the stuff they put out in Warhammer Community, like these, narrative fluff, in-depth dives, talk about like the ash wastes. So I'm waiting for the Mad Max Road Warrior, like all the gangers on doom buggies, playing, getting outside the sewers and playing like some of these like Mad Max scenarios.
Gaslands 40K.
Yeah, Gasland. Yeah, Speed. When I saw Speed Freaks come out and how they killed it quickly, I thought, well, maybe they'll do with Speed Freaks what they did with Armageddon, of where they say, you know what, maybe we'll build a larger multi-factioned game around this mechanic.
I would have loved that. I would have loved to see. I have 2 copies of Speed Freaks. And that game has seen the table once, and the vehicles that came with it have seen more play in my army than they have on that game. But if I was going up against, like, if there was like the Necrons, or probably not the Necrons, but like Space Marines and the Gangers and other factions like that, that'd be like super cool, like high speed chases and gunfights. I would be all in for that.
Yeah, so I'm waiting for that to infiltrate into Necromunda, because they always talk about, the caravans between the different hive cities and escorting them and the dangers of them. So I'm waiting for that to be an expansion on the game.
It should be awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for Necromunda. Thanks for watching. I'm Brian.
And I'm James. And we'll see you next time.
Yep, and this is Miniature Wargaming Labs.
That's right, it is.
Yes, it is.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.